What's up, guys, and welcome to a brand new episode of NeoVintage News. Now, we got quite the show for you guys, got a whole bunch of stories to get to, so let's get started. The first one was kind of a rumor that was floating around, and I wanted to talk about it to bring about a little bit of clarity for some follow-ups to that story that a lot of people seem to have overlooked. So the first one was the rumor had emerged in a recent GamesBeat podcast that Microsoft was in talks with Bungie to acquire them, but negotiations fell through upon the realization of how much Bungie was actually looking for to be bought out. Then Bungie CEO Pete Parsons responded to a tweet reporting the rumors, saying flat out that this is false. So all the info and speculation out there is not true, a Bungie rep said. We are lucky to have a great relationship with our many friends over there who play Destiny, and Halo will always have a special place in our heart. Jeff Grubb of VentureBeat, who initially mentioned the rumor, later said on Twitter that the remark wasn't intended to mean that formal movement towards a buyout was underway, noting that the acquisition talks are always happening all the time for all kinds of stuff. So it seemed like he kind of mentioned the fact that there was dialogue between Bungie and Microsoft happening, but he kind of cleared it up and say that this is more of a routine thing and that this wasn't some major buyout talk that was happening that was different, and that, you know, Bungie was on track to become part of Microsoft Game Studios or anything like that. So a lot of people were reporting it like that, but that's not really the case apparently. And but some of the numbers I saw thrown around, I did feel like were very appropriate. I mean, Bungie is an amazing team. Obviously, they have their heritage with Halo, and they moved on to Destiny eventually. 343 ended up taking up over Halo. Bungie would be an excellent team to have on their roster over there at Microsoft. However, judging by the talent pool that they have and what they work on project-wise, it does feel like it would be a bit of a redundancy. It would be great to have Bungie to bring them back on Halo, but I think 343 does a pretty good job on the Halo game, so it does feel like a little bit of a redundancy to bring them back into the ecosystem now that I feel like in many ways their shoes have been filled, maybe to the extent of quality that some people feel that it should. But yeah, let's just move on to the biggest story of the show probably, which is the PS5 event and all the details that we got. We got a ton of information, and a ton has transpired since last week. So I'm going to bring you guys up to speed with what was announced, what was shown up, what happened related to the PS5, and let you guys know, because basically we're in the next gen right now. We've moved in, and all the details are out there, all the information is out there, and people are starting to make purchases. So since the last episode of PS5 event has happened, the release date, price range, and games were all revealed. The launch date for the console will be November 12th for the US, Japan, Canada, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea. The rest of the world is going to go a week later on the 19th, actually. So the discless version, or the digital-only version, will be $399, and the regular version will be $499. So it seems like the high-end version of the console with all the accoutrements and features will be $500, just like the Xbox. However, their digital-only version is going to be $399 as opposed to Microsoft's offerings at $299. But the differentiator is that the digital only and regular version of the PS5 have the same specs and processing ability. It's just a presence of a disk drive or not. That's the differentiator between what Xbox is doing, where obviously the S and X have power differences or GPU differences. This one, same console, just with a disk drive or without a disk drive. So if you don't mind going all digital, you can shave off $100 from your console. So that's a great thing. We also got the launch lineup. So the launch lineup game-wise is going to be Astro's Playroom, Demon's Souls, Destruction All-Stars, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Sackboy: A Big Adventure, which I'm not mad at. I'm not mad at that. There's some stuff on there that are pretty interesting to me, so I'm excited to jump into a couple of things. But before I give my individual thoughts on each of the games, I want to get to some other details and stuff that went down. So pre-orders went up early, a few hours after the presentation, so with little to no warning. So obviously I feel like PlayStation had a vision of how the pre-orders were going to go, and some of the retailers jumped the gun. PlayStation didn't seem to do much to counteract that, and a lot of them went live. Walmart went live, GameStop went live, I think Target went live, or GameStop, sorry, not GameSpot. But yeah, it went everywhere, and I was, luckily, because I was waiting there ready to refresh, because I knew the moment the presentation was going to happen, things were going to get messy. I knew that because I know how this COVID era is. I know how the digital pre-order era is. I know how PlayStation can be. All this I knew was going to be a very messy affair. So I was ready on my laptop, double screen, ready to go. Had all the tabs open. Had certain Twitter people with their notifications on because it was Cheap Ass Gamer and I believe Wario64 were the two people that I had. up, and those are the two guys who I know would be tweeting links as they go live. So I was ready to go the moment it is, and after a couple botched links and things going down on Amazon and stuff like that, I was luckily able to secure a digital only version of the PlayStation 5 along with an additional controller at Walmart. Just the one. I'm not a scalper or anything like that, buying a whole bunch of them. I'm glad that I was able to buy one, and we're going to talk about it on the podcast that we're going to film tomorrow. That's going to go up Monday. Steve was also able to get one as well, so that's really, really awesome that I was able to get a PS5, because I had a lot of anxiety going into this about whether or not I'd be able to get a console. So before I get into the things that were actually shown off at the event, I did want to mention something, that follow up about the whole PlayStation signing up on their website for advanced notification for people who are going to be chosen to get a link. So that finally went live, I believe, yesterday or the day before yesterday, a little bit after all those links went live. And things were interesting. I saw a lot of people posting it. It's very interesting that a lot of influencers got chosen for their to get their consoles, but a lot of people who have screenshots of high performing accounts with high trophy levels, high engagement, had their account for years and years and years and years, a lot of them didn't get it. But it's very interesting that pretty much every PlayStation related influencer seemed to get a email from PlayStation saying, hey, you've been chosen for this. So that's very interesting. Not claiming anything, I just think that's very interesting and worth noting. So it seems like in many ways Sony's really dropped the ball on this launch. Obviously, with a console this successful, it's not like they're going to have a problem moving units. However, they did make it clear through their marketing director, I believe, sometime back when he was talking to Jeff Keighley, that there would be ample time to prepare for pre-orders. And even though the retail space jumped the gun and stuff like that, we've heard pretty much nothing from PlayStation directly about like, hey, we have this amount of consoles, don't worry, if you want a pre-order you'll be able to get them with ample notice and stuff like that. That never happened from them. That was retail partners allowing them, to just jump the gun, and a lot of players were hung out to dry. But I mean, I was able to get my console, but I'm very empathetic to a lot of people who weren't there refreshing, ready to go. Obviously, going to the store is not always an option for people, especially during the COVID era where some of these stores are not even available to them. So, this is really, really messy, and I feel like PlayStation really dropped the ball, and I had to bring that up. Again, they're not going to have problem moving units, but I feel like the way they went about this whole pre-order system was really, really messy, and kind of needlessly so. So I guess we can get into the major announcement of the PlayStation event, because there's some really, really awesome stuff shown off. So I'm just going to go one by one. If I have thoughts about it, I'll let you guys know. If not, I'll just keep it moving. So the first one, Final Fantasy 16 was finally revealed. This looks incredible. I'm super excited to check this out. I really like the kind of medieval monarchist looking environment that it's set in, along with some of the kinetic gameplay that we kind of was shown off a little bit in Final Fantasy 15, but obviously it has its own style here. It's quick, it's fast. I like what I'm seeing, man. I really am excited about it. For you guys who have been following the channel for a bit now, you guys know I've been really getting back into Final Fantasy in a real way. So I'm ready to jump into 16 when it comes out. 15 was really not my cup of tea, but some of the previous ones, I really love 7, I really love 6, I really love 9. I started to get a little bit more love for 10 and 13. So I'm ready to go for 16 the moment this comes, but I don't think this is going to be coming out anytime soon. I'm curious to see how the schedule of this game's release falls with the whole Final Fantasy VII remake thing. Is this two projects that are going to work simultaneously? They're going to work on both, and then this one will be spliced in between, I don't know, part 2 and part 3 of remake, or are they going to try to get all the 7 remake parts out first and then go for Final Fantasy 16? I'm not sure. I don't know how far in development there is. Final Fantasy 15 came out some time ago. I think it was like 2015 or something like that. So it's been quite a bit since a mainline Final Fantasy game has been released. So we're more than due for it, but I don't know what stage of development there is. And from what I was seeing, it looks really good. So I'm really looking forward to Final Fantasy 16. I'm glad that they opened the conference with that. The next one, we got some Spider-Man Miles Morales gameplay and a long trailer for it. This game is looking incredible. I'm really, really excited for this. I'm glad that it's coming out this year so soon. You could see that it's definitely not just a traditional reskin of the first Spider-Man game. There's a lot of differences in terms of, I saw some New York details, amazing representation, gotta mention that. You guys know that embracing the different cultures that are present in gaming is something that means a lot to me, and I see this game really doing it when they're walking down in Spanish Harlem and stuff like that. So I think that's an incredible thing, and I'm all about it. I like the gameplay. From what I saw, the combat looks way more engaging than some of the stuff that you saw in Spider-Man. Miles Morales actually, obviously has a different power set, if you're familiar with the character, than Peter Parker's Spider-Man. So I'm glad that they work that into the gameplay and show that he is very much a different, distinct hero that fights in a distinct way and is just a different person. And so I'm glad that thematically they've played around with a lot of stuff. There's some soundtrack choices that they made that really differentiates it from the first Spider-Man game. They incorporate a lot more trap drums and hip-hop influences and stuff like that, which I'm all about. So I'm loving what I'm seeing here, and I'm definitely jumping into this game. And the cool thing is that this game is actually going to be available for PS4 players as well. I'm going to be getting it on PlayStation 5 personally, so I can play it at the highest fidelity possible. But for you guys who are not going to be making the next-gen jump, you guys will be able to play the game too, so that's really great. The next one, Harry Potter's Hogwarts Legacy announced. Finally, this game got, I mean, we heard leaks and rumors about this game probably like 2 years ago or something like that. It's been some time, and for a long time we've kind of been wondering, like, when are they going to show off this game? What is this game going to look like? And a lot of the rumors seem to be true. This is a fully realized open world third-person action Harry Potter game, or at least a story in the Harry Potter universe. It seems to take place in the 1800s. I'm a Harry Potter fan. I like what I'm seeing generally. It didn't look like it was running the best personally. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about that. But I'm curious to see how the ultimate game shapes up. There's some cool stuff I'm seeing there. I'm excited to jump into it when it comes out. I'm curious to see if some of the controversy around like J.K. Rowling, for example, translates into hitting the sales of this game or anything. I'm not sure exactly how great a Harry Potter property sells in 2020. I'm not sure exactly, but I'd be sure to jump into it, and I want to see what they offer there and see if there's any good story, if it's story light and it's more of a world thing, if it's going to be a whole bunch of additional content like DLC'd into it. I'm curious to see what their release schedule and strategy for this game is. Next one, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War campaign gameplay. Looks good. I'm into the campaign, so this is definitely for me. I like what I see, but again, they've shown off Black Ops already. It kind of is one of those things that if you play Call of Duty, you're familiar with the franchise, there's not that much different with this one other than maybe the fact that, yeah, it takes place in the 80s. Yeah, so that's cool. Resident Evil Village, we got another trailer for that. That game has been shown off already. We got a little bit more, though, this time. I'm still really, really excited for this game. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Deathloop trailer, again, a game by, I believe, Arcane Leon, and partnered with Bethesda. Like what I'm seeing. Deathloop, it looks like a really cool, stylized, kind of 60s 007 kind of vibe to it. 60s and 70s 007 vibe for this one. I like what they're doing here. It's not necessarily a game that I think that I'm probably going to jump into day one, but it's something that I got my eye on. The DMC 5 Special Edition, Special Edition announced a whole bunch of new content to DMC 5. I haven't played the regular DMC 5, but I want to use some time to catch up myself with the story, so I could jump onto this one with the next gen because this game looks incredible and I really want to jump into it. So I'm probably going to play this on PlayStation 5, most likely. Oddworld Soulstorm gameplay trailer. Steve is more the one that's into Oddworld, so I'll leave that to him to talk about. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach announced. That's really interesting. So it looks like maybe it's going to be making the jump into console. And I know there's reports on the console, but I'm talking about like a top-to-bottom developed on console, higher budget Five Nights at Freddy's game. I think that's pretty cool. It's something I'm going to keep my eye on. Maybe I'll watch a couple, gameplay videos on it. It's probably not something I'm going to jump into. I'm not really into the regular Five Nights at Freddy's game, but I know there's an incredible amount of lore over there, so I'm curious to see if this one is more of a reboot. Is this just expanding the lore and stuff like that? I'm curious to see. Demon Soul gameplay revealed. Now this was really, really awesome, and I want to commend Bluepoint on what they're doing with Demon Souls on multiple angles. First off, this game is beautiful. It looks like it's running very faithfully to the original. They've done a fantastic job, as you'd expect from Bluepoint, at translating this game to a newer version or a remake, for example. The great thing is, in this age of so many pre-rendered cutscenes where you see 7 minutes of a trailer, but then the game comes out and it's obviously not the same thing, I can commend them for having minutes and minutes of just straight up gameplay. Just him running so you can get a vibe of what this game is going to look like and what it's going to feel like. And I think that's an awesome thing that I really want to commend them on. And this is going to be a launch game. Demon Souls is very much something I did not play the original. I've dabbled in Dark Souls. I've played a lot of Bloodborne in my days, so I'm kind of familiar with these Souls-like games, but I'm definitely not that kind of player. I'm not the get good guy. I'm terrible at games. I admit that. I'm not that guy for this. However, the fact that this is coming out at launch makes me more interested in possibly jumping into it, and it'll get me a lot of play out of my PlayStation because, again, these games are brutal. So it'll give me a lot of opportunity to be able to play a game. So I got my eye on it. I'm not sure 100% if I'm going to play it, but it's an interesting thing. And the interesting thing also about a lot of these games that are coming out on the PlayStation 5 is that they're definitely playing around with pricing. It seems like we're going to be getting the final jump to $70 games. It's been kind of speculated for a long time as how long are games going to stick at 60? They've pretty much been at 60, I believe, since the PlayStation 2 generation. So it's been a long time since they've kind of sat at $60, a game. But it looks like they're going to be playing around with a little bit more expensive stuff. And we've gotten $70 and $80 like special editions with DLCs and season passes and stuff like that integrated. But it seems like we're going to get $70 games of just the game. So that's very interesting. I'm curious to see if that affects sales or not. A game like Demon's Souls, if you're into these games, I could definitely see you getting more than $70 worth out of this game. But again, paying $70, that's $10 more. $70 for multiple games a year, maybe dozens of games a year, depending on how active of a gamer you are. That's really hitting the bank. You got to be more protective of your money and make sure that these are games that you definitely get the time out of. So that gives me a little bit of pause. The jump to $70 will definitely make me second guess some of the purchases I make. But again, I'm going to look into Demon's Souls as we get closer to launch is probably when I'll make my ultimate decision. Fortnite and Unreal Engine 4. If you're a Fortnite fan, awesome. Of course, this was going to be on next gen. To me, I couldn't really differentiate it. It looked like maybe the frame rate was a little higher, the resolution was a little higher, but to me, it's Fortnite. PlayStation Plus collection announced for the PlayStation 5. So this is really, really cool. This is basically if you have a PlayStation Plus subscription and you go onto the PS5, you're going to have a subset of PlayStation 4 games available for you to play, and they're pretty much the greatest hits of the PlayStation 4, so it's really, really awesome. I'm going to leave the PlayStation blog entry down below where you can see the list of games that are going to be included in this collection. This is really, really awesome. For a long time, a lot of people were speculating, like, is PlayStation going to reinvent PlayStation Now to compete with Game Pass? And they've made it clear that that is not a viable economic platform for them to use. We've gotten formal confirmation that PlayStation is not looking to do something like that. That in their view, these games take sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars to develop, and having them kind of available in perpetuity on an online service for people to download at will for $15 a month is just not an economic platform that they believe that they can maintain. Which, I mean, I understand. I don't really understand how Xbox is able to afford it, to be honest with you. But however, they don't have the first party output as frequent as PlayStation does. So yeah, it makes sense why it would be a different beast. Microsoft is making a lot of third-party relationships to kind of populate Game Pass along with some of their first-party catalog going backwards. PlayStation, they have multiple major first-party releases coming out every single year. To throw that onto their Game Pass service is an entirely different thing. For them to make it work financially, it would first off have to be a way more expensive service, to be honest with you, than $10 or $15 a month. So a lot of people, when this first showed off, they're like, oh, is this their Game Pass offering? And it's like, no, it looks like this is more of just bringing some of the old PlayStation 4 games onto the next gen with you, so you have more games to be able to play at launch. But yeah, I like this. There's some really awesome games there. There's some stuff that I'd probably jump into myself that I haven't played, like Last Guardian and stuff like that. So I'm liking what I'm seeing there. And then finally, one of my favorite announcements, the most hype announcement of the little presentation there, is what we got tacked on to the end there. God of War Ragnarok teaser trailer. We didn't get much beyond that. The fact that it just says Ragnarok is coming. But the fact that they formally confirmed that, hey, it's coming, and there's another God of War game, and it seems like it's coming in 2021, which is way sooner than I would have thought, because again, I believe we're getting Horizon next year and stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of stuff set for next year that I would have thought that they would have booted it for like its major 2022 game, but it looks like they're going all full steam ahead for 2021 to really start moving some units of this console and to have a strong first party presence on the PlayStation 5. So I think that's a really, really awesome thing. I cannot wait. God of War is pretty much one of my favorite, if not my favorite, PlayStation 4 IP game that came out, period. It played amazingly. The story was amazing. I love the character design. I love what they did as a reboot for this franchise. I love the setting. I'm really into Norse mythology and stuff like that. So, you know, God of War was straight up my alley, and I'm glad that it's getting a sequel. Of course, it was kind of a given. Of course, they're going to do a sequel. There was 3 of the original one. Of course, I wouldn't be surprised if they would do a trilogy for this reboot. But I'm just surprised it's so soon, to be honest. So another one is, it went a little bit under the radar for everybody who wasn't a Nintendo fan. There was a Direct Mini, and it was kind of like a partner showcase, and they announced a number of different things there. So I'm going to go through the different announcements. To be completely honest with you guys, I don't have a ton to say on these announcements. This Direct presentation, I will not say was a bad partner showcase, but it wasn't anything that resonated with me. There's not much for me to talk about here, but I'm just going to read off everything that they announced. So we got Monster Hunter Rise, and we got Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin, 2 Monster Hunter games coming to the Switch. We have Ori and the Will of the Wisps on Switch right now, which is an awesome Microsoft Game Studios game. Phenomenal game. I played it on Game Pass. Definitely go check out Ori. It's a phenomenal kind of atmospheric platformer. Fitness Boxing 2, Rhythm and Exercise. We got Disgaea 6, Defiance of Destiny. The next one is actually pretty interesting. We have Balan Wonderworld. This, I believe, is by the guy who created Sonic and Nights into Dreams. So this is a really interesting game. I'm excited to jump into it just because of the heritage of the creators who made it. The game looks fun, but I will complete honestly with you guys, it does look kind of aged. And I'm like, wait, is this a port that I missed out on? I don't believe so. I think this is a brand new game coming for the first time in 2021. But again, it's looking a little old for me. And again, I am not by no means a graphics whore or anything like that, but some of the visual style looked a little bit aged to me. So I'm curious to see if that's just an early build and the final version is going to come out more polished or something like that. But I'm going to play it nonetheless, just because, again, that heritage of that Sonic creator attached to it gives me a lot of faith that this could be a really, really fun game. We have Rune Factory 5, The Long Dark, Hades. Hades looks really cool. Empire of Sin. I like the 1920s flapper mobster era, 1930s, but the gameplay style kind of turned me off to it. I'm not really into strategy, managerial sim type games. Not really my thing. Sniper Elite 4 is coming to Switch as well. And I'm always kind of fascinated when these kind of like bigger console games make their way to Switch and how they perform and stuff like that. For one, it looked like it was performing really well. It looked really high quality. That's the thing, is a lot of the graphical fidelity takes a major hit when it comes to the Switch. But Sniper Elite 4 looked clean, man. But we'll see when it finally comes out. Next story is a big story that a lot of people haven't been talking about, which there was a Jim Ryan interview. Now, PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan recently gave an interview where he gave some interesting information. So one major revelation is that Sony's main focus was PS4 backwards compatibility exclusively on the PlayStation 5, and that they didn't apparently have the time to get PlayStation 1 through 3 working. Now I'm going to read some of his statement. We keep in mind that the engineering specialized for the PlayStation 5 as we produce the device. In the midst of that, the PlayStation 4 already has 100 million players. We thought that we ought to play PS4 titles on the PlayStation 5 as well, indeed. So we included compatibility with the PS4. While implementing that, we focused our efforts on taking the high-speed SSD and the new controller DualSense at the same time. So unfortunately, we didn't get to reach the implementation of such capabilities, referencing backwards compatibility with PlayStation 1, 2, and 3. So we had that whole story about Ubisoft coming out basically being like that the PlayStation device is not going to work with PlayStation 1, 2, and 3 games. We weren't sure if that's a Ubisoft backwards compatibility exclusive thing or a generalized thing. It looks like, from what Jim Ryan is saying, is that at least for now, the PlayStation's not going to be compatible with any PlayStation 1, 2, or 3 games. We know that the power is not the issue. I guess it's just bringing the emulator to be able to emulate those games. PlayStation 3, obviously, with the cell architecture, has its own set of issues, so PlayStation Now has been their answer to that. But having a robust offering for PlayStation 1 and 2 on the PlayStation 5, there's no real reason for them to not have it other than not seeing the returns, not worth the work. And we've talked about backwards compatibility on this channel at length. You guys know I'm a big fan of it. I use it a lot on Xbox, but again, I know that I'm not necessarily in the majority. A lot of people don't really go back to play old games, and if they do, they're not using their new consoles to do that, even if it's available. A lot of people are going to use the PlayStation 5 to play PlayStation 5 games, maybe play PlayStation 4 games, but beyond that, I don't think a lot of players are missing anything. But personally, it's something that I like to use a lot, so I would love to see it there. But again, some people are using this as a story like, hey, PlayStation 5, no backwards compatibility. And I like to always add the caveat, for now. Things change, things develop. The PlayStation 4 had no backwards compatibility at launch, but they eventually launched the PS2, and sadly nothing else, but that is something. But even look at the Xbox. The Xbox One had 0 backwards compatibility before it came out, or at least not much. And then fast forward to now, you can play Xbox games, you can play Xbox 360 games, amazing high list of backwards compatible games offering. I was able to just pop in, Final Fantasy 13 and be able to play that. So that's really, really awesome. So again, things can change for PlayStation. If they see a high demand for it, I could see them easily putting in a PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 emulator, and then maybe just keeping PlayStation 3 as a PlayStation Now kind of streaming thing. I could see that happening, but again, for now, at least at launch, temper your expectations. PS4, PS5, that's all you're going to really have access to right now. But Jim Ryan, he offered a lot of interesting information about kind of Sony's approach to next gen with console availability. It seems like there's going to be more PlayStation 5s in the wild as PlayStation 4s at launch, so that's a really interesting detail as I saw some headlines on and stuff like that. So hopefully, if you ultimately want a PlayStation 5 and you're able to be a little bit patient, you should be able to get a console, hopefully. But I know they've said multiple times that COVID hasn't really played that much of a role in constraining the production pipeline, but I cannot see how that's the case, honestly. But yeah, it's a really interesting story. Keep your eye out for Jim Ryan and some more PlayStation news, because I know we're going to get more and more information as the console gets closer to launch. We get closer to November 12th. So the last story is kind of a story I kind of tacked on to the end. I just wanted to mention for you guys. Nintendo has officially ended production of the Nintendo 3DS family of systems after 10 years, or just about 10 years. The console was released back in 2011 and has sold over 75 million units, which I thought sold more, but 75 million units is absolutely nothing to snuff your nose at. I'm a big fan of the 3DS, especially towards the end. I wasn't at launch. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. When it came out in 2011, wasn't really feeling it. Didn't love the launch library. Obviously, they had some issues with some of the game availability at launch and the price proposition. I believe they launched it in like the $250 range or something like that, and not a ton of great games on it. And obviously, reception to that wasn't the greatest, so they cut that price down to, I believe, like $170, $169 or something like that. And they offered like the ambassador program as kind of like an apology to the early adopters to the console, which was really, really interesting. And with all that happening, I'm just like, geez, Nintendo, what's going on? Especially the fact that in 2011, 2012, they were transitioning from the Wii to the Wii U. The Wii U didn't do great in 2012. The 3DS wasn't doing too good in 2011. The Vita was coming out in, I believe, 2012, and that thing was a powerhouse, and the 3DS in comparison, power-wise, was not even comparable. But as the years progressed, boy, did they prove everybody wrong with a number of incredible games. They had Zelda remakes on it, a great Mario Kart on that, a great Animal Crossing, a bunch of third-party games, excellent Pokemon games on there as well. So, I mean, and man, they got a Smash Brothers working on 3DS, which is, I mean, really, really impressive with what they were able to do and extract the power out of that tech. And ultimately, when all was said and done, and there was a million iterations, you got the 3DS, the 3DS XL, the 2DS, the 2DS XL, you got the tablet 2DS, like you got a whole bunch of different stuff, the new 3DS, the new 3DS XL, or LL, as they said outside the United States. There was a whole bunch of versions of this console, but I really have a lot of love for this console, and I think when all was said and done, this console is going to have a great legacy ahead of it, and I knew this day was going to come eventually. I see some people a little bit disappointed in the fact that, the Switch came out in 2017, 2020 already discontinuing the 3DS 3 years into the life of the next console. Isn't that a little bit soon? I will say is like, what was the last major 3DS game? It's been some time. I mean, the last major 3DS game that I personally played, I think, was Metroid, which was some time ago. I mean, that was like 2 or 3 years ago at this point. So, I mean, there's not a lot coming out for the 3DS, so it doesn't make sense for them to keep pumping out a whole bunch of units. They're readily available. Obviously, the price is going to shoot up a little bit on them once a console is discontinued, because, again, new versions are not going to be available from the production pipeline. But I mean, a lot of people who want 3DSs have 3DSs. If you don't have one and you still want one, now's the time to do it before they fully end production and it's off the site and off of everywhere. GameStops are still holding them in mass. You can get cheap ones on eBay, and it also depends on what model you want. If I could suggest one, there are maroon and charcoal gray new 3DS XLs that I think are really awesome that you should check out. The 2DS XL is really awesome too, but I would say that the kind of gloss finish and just the form factor of and the less cheap build, because the new 2DSs have a cheaper build. If you're looking for a 3DS to buy, that's the version I say go for. Probably go for the maroon one. That's the one Steve has that I've always been jealous over. I have the charcoal gray one, and these consoles look incredible to this day. That's the 3DS to go for. It's big, it's bulky, the screens are beautiful, great design to it. Highly suggest you get that one. But yeah, R.I.P. 3DS, we love you. Had a rough start. I was very critical of you at the start, but as time progressed, you proved me wrong, and I got a lot of love for you now. So I guess we can jump into the second half of the show, which is what I've been playing and the game recommendation of the week. I've been playing both of these games, but I'm going to save one for my game recommendation. So what I've been playing, the main game, is Modern Warfare 2 Campaign Remastered. This game has been out for a little bit, but they put it on PlayStation Plus for free. So I was like, all right, screw it. I'll play it. I like the campaigns for Call of Duty games, and so this one is definitely good for me. I know a lot of people were disappointed with the fact that they didn't remaster and bring back the multiplayer for this, but I never really got into the multiplayer one, so this was fine for me. And playing this game, man, this game still really holds up. I think it's really fun. Just shooting around that favela, man, that whole level is just incredible in my view. Again, back then, and still to this day in many ways, these campaigns are really just kind of interactive action movies in many ways, and I feel like Modern Warfare 2 really exemplifies that. I mean, the choreography for some of these events and stuff like that are absolute classics, and if you play it now, a lot of it seems like, okay, I mean, what is this, 2009 at this point? We've seen this theme thrown around, but at the time, this was an incredible thing to experience on a console on this level. I mean, if you think of the before that, a lot of first-person shooters, of course, you have the Dooms, you have the Medal of Honors, and what Call of Duty was up to that point with the World War II shooters, and then Halo was its own thing. But in terms of like a modern warfare, and no pun intended, you know, this was setting the stage into something very new, and ultimately I feel like they kind of drove it into the ground and they had to reboot it, and that is great in its own regard. But back then, man, they were killing it. Just the Russian invasion of like Northern Virginia, I think, when you're fighting and stuff like that, it's just incredible level design and stuff like that, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm thinking that I might beat it still, but maybe not, because now that the next game is out, I don't really need to play that game. That was kind of like a filler game. Now that I beat a lot of the games that were out, I beat Avengers and stuff like that, and Mafia is not out yet. This was kind of like a filler game for me, and I had a lot of fun with it. The next one, game recommendation of the week, of course, the major collection that's come out that everybody's been talking about is Mario 3D All-Stars. Now, I'm going to give my super in-depth thoughts on this tomorrow on the podcast. It'll go live Monday. Keep you guys eyes open for that. I believe it's episode 23 if I'm not mistaken, but I'll give you guys my kind of brief thoughts. Came in yesterday, Friday afternoon it came on. UPS delivered it. I jumped into it. 3 games in it. Obviously, you got Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. The one that I had the most love and nostalgia for personally is Super Mario Sunshine. I didn't have a 64 growing up, so I jumped into that one retroactively. I played it mostly on the DS, actually, the remake of it. So I wanted to jump into the Sunshine first because that's the one I'm most familiar with, and I played a little bit of it, and I liked what it was. It was pretty surreal experience being able to play that game in high fidelity on kind of like the go and stuff like that. I played it docked. The game is beautiful. I love it. I played a little bit of 64. That one holds up really well. Of course, it's an absolute classic. The one that I was most apprehensive and curious about was Galaxy. How is this game gonna play? And lo and behold, I am super surprised. That is the game that I am most impressed by, to be honest. Like, I mean, they snapped on the game. The touch integration, I'm liking it, man. It feels really well for me. Of course, ideally, yes, I'd like to use buttons for everything. But I felt like the touchscreen was a nice, you know, choice for it. I don't like the flipping, wagging thing version of it when you're playing Doctor with Joy-Cons and stuff like that. I have no interest in playing it like that. But I think they did an incredible job bringing Galaxy. It's beautiful. They did an incredible job cleaning that up. It essentially looks like a newer Mario game. They did an incredible job cleaning it up, and the world just, you know, the level design is just incredible. And this really cements in my head that for a long time I was like, I know a lot of people say Galaxy is probably the best, 64 is probably the best, but I've always felt that Sunshine for me has always been my favorite, or my best. personally. But for me, playing these 3 games back to back, and again, I haven't beat them all, Galaxy is kind of in a league of its own, in my opinion. Like, they really did some awesome things there. And of course, 64 is an absolute classic too as well. All of them are classics. But man, Galaxy, they really killed it on this one. I'm so glad to be able to play this on the Switch and play it to go and everything like that. So yeah, this is an incredible collection. $60. I'm more than happy, willing to pay for, you know, $60 for this collection. But I understand some people taking issues. I do have to say, in many ways, you can make an argument that, yeah, Nintendo did kind of half-ass this collection. It's very bare bones. The UI is damn near non-existent. You get the 3 games, you get the 3 soundtracks, and that's it. We've already talked about it. No Galaxy 2. Yes, that's a bit disappointing. It makes me wonder, now that these emulators do exist on the Switch and you're able to play a 64 game, a GameCube game, and a Wii game, that makes me wonder, like, that March cutoff, is that their introduction to the upgraded Virtual Console? Perhaps. I think that would be really, really awesome if they did that. And maybe then that's when they'll offer Galaxy 2. But yeah, the 3D All-Stars collection I think is really, really awesome. If you're a big fan of Mario and you're willing to get the gameplay out of it, this is definitely worth it. But again, yeah, there are emulating things that do it at a higher quality for free, I guess, online, that will probably be a better experience for you. But to be able to play it on a Nintendo piece of hardware has its own set of benefits as well. I wish they fixed some things with Sunshine in terms of the gameplay doesn't feel great, the squirt doesn't feel great, the 64 camera and the Sunshine camera are both very wonky and stuff like that. So I wish there was some quality of life improvements in there. But again, those are the games as they were released, and here you go. They're ports, not remakes. I understand that. But yeah, man, that's my game recommendation of the week. Go check it out. It's not without its flaws, but I think there's a lot of fun to be had there. I got my copy right there in front of my Wii games, and I'm having a great time with it, and I'm pretty much going to be playing it for the rest of the weekend. So that's the show for you guys. I'm going to see you guys next Saturday with a whole bunch of new news. And again, if you want to hear me talk in depth about any of these stories, we're going to be talking about it on the next episode of the podcast. That's going to go live Monday, so go check that out. Me and Steve hash over the biggest stories in gaming. Until next time, this is Jabril. I love you guys. Bye.